Hey there, gang. So the past few days with the announcement of Behavior's quality of life update that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months, I've been having a bunch of people come through my chat and ask me what they thought my opinions on it happened to be. And I never really took the time to approach it properly when it first came out. I'd been kind of preoccupied with some things setting up going forward with my streaming scheduling and everything and my video releases. So now that I've had that time, I thought I would record my thoughts and give you guys a video on what those opinions are, right? So starting first, we're going to be looking at phase one. I'm actually not going to give any opinions at all in phase two because they haven't given us any detail beyond just a very broad scope. And I don't want to make the unfair decision toward behavior of giving an opinion on something that they probably aren't even going to do. Like just to give a very, very brief understanding of what I'm getting at, like where they say anti-tunneling and anti-camping, that couldn't just necessarily mean that they're going to make camping and tunneling harder. This could go as far as to say, hey, not only is, yes, camping and tunneling harder, but you really shouldn't be camping and tunneling because you should be doing this, right? It could even be so much they're not even making camping and tunneling harder, but they're making it to where, hey, you don't want to camp and tunnel because you literally want to do this. You know what I mean? It's the best way I can kind of summarize it. The ideas that some people have been flouting is what happens if you got a base kit pain res of like 5% every time you hooked a different survivor, right? Don't factor in the numbers, but just the concept. That would literally encourage you, due to the phasing and the progression of the game, to not tunnel. It's not that it's making it harder. You are literally not doing it because, yes, it is not the right decision objectively through numbers and all types of manner, right? So that's just where all I really want to go when it comes to everything in phase two. I don't really want to look at any of that. We're going to be focusing purely on everything they talk about in phase one, not just because in addition to this broad scope, they gave us their thoughts. It's a bit of a brief summary. I assume we're going to know more as April gets closer, but we're just going to kind of go by each bullet point here. First things first, the surrender state mechanic. It looks like they're going to make it to where when all survivors are slugged, the survivors can just surrender and end the game, and it counts as a kill, I believe, for every survivor, which is great. I really do think this is 100% the way they should approach this type of situation. A lot of people are kind of thinking, why isn't there something a bit more preventative done first, such as base kit unbreakable? They did try that, as I'm sure y'all remembered, back in the PTB, and it was pretty catastrophic, even in situations where the killer wasn't trying to go out of his way to slug every survivor. In fact, due to the circumstances that it was applied, killers were encouraged, the ones of the stronger slugging caliber, to slug harder than ever before. So definitely didn't work out the way that they intended. So I think rather than try to implement some change early that could create some type of imbalance in the game outside of that meta and play style, I think that's all for the better. And yeah, give the killers technically what they earned in that sense, right? If they slugged all of the survivors, if the understanding is that they're next going to hook every survivor, which they should be doing, I'll even say, right? Then that's 4 kills. This idea of bleeding out every single survivor for 4 minutes, I've talked about this plenty of times on my stream, y'all. I get a lot of survivors who waste my time in my games. And I'm talking about it is in extreme frequency. If you sit down and you watch my streams consistently over multiple sessions, any match where I have a decisive loss and I decide to either go to the gates or I don't, the survivors do everything that they can to remind me how terrible I should feel for losing the match. They will waste their time deliberately as long as they can in order to ensure that my time is wasted so that they can rub it in as hard as they possibly can. I want to put emphasis on that, okay? So when survivors are getting bled out for 4 minutes, I've been very vocal that I didn't give a shit. Like, I don't feel bad because the qualification for what a killer deserves to get this type of treatment is typically doing what you have to do to come back and salvage an otherwise lost match. And this apparently brands you for ridicule, especially if you don't succeed. And it doesn't matter in my book that the slug timer is longer than the in-game timer. I genuinely don't care, because you don't get to punch somebody and respond and complain when their response is breaking your arm. You're the one who instigated. You're the one who who asked for it in a manner of speaking, right? So I personally, when it comes to personal feelings, did not care when this happened to survivors. However, if we speak objective, yes, this does need to change because there really is no reason for survivors to be on the ground that long when the match is lost. That is the objective way of phrasing and looking at things. And personally, as someone who, when I do slug, because sometimes I do like to do 4-man slug builds, I want the games to be over as quick as I can too, right? When I get all my 4 slug downs, I'm not bleeding them out myself because I want to go next. I'm not looking to exact vengeance. I'm looking to get my win because it is a very unique and different playstyle. I want to go on to my next game. So if I have this feature, like if this is implemented and survivors just say to themselves, like, okay, he beat us, we go next, and I don't have to pick anybody up and I get all my credit and all that, great, dude. That's awesome. The way I see it, genuinely, that's great. You know, the whole like vengeance shit aside, that again, I want to be very clear while I have these feelings, I don't actually partake in that because that is just a waste of my time, I'm gonna be honest. But next bullet point, when all survivors are bots, the killer is also able to surrender and go next. I think this is also good, but I'd like to see it expanded a bit further. Going back to that other point I was talking about, where survivors would do what they can to rub in loss, stall time, things like that of that nature when a game is unsalvageable. I really think, in addition to this bullet point, whenever the survivors are all bots, I think when all generators are completed, the killer should be able to open the exit gates, which they already can, right? This is current in the game, and they should be able to walk up to the gate, and there will be a prompt, right, that you could press with like an input on your keyboard or controller. You hold the input, it'll say something like leave the trial. You have to hold the input for a few seconds, right? Just like in DBD fashion, a bar will fill up. When the bar fully fills up, the killer leaves the trial. All survivors immediately leave the trial. It's an escape, just as if the killer technically disconnected. It doesn't subject the killer to any type of ridicule themselves because, I don't feel like just because there's a difference between slug timers and being able to force the survivors out that you should be subjected to that. I feel like that's very victimizing mentality to have that. So I don't really see, in addition to this current bullet point, right, why the killer, assuming all generators are done, which means the survivors have facilitated the almost like full completion of their objective beyond literally walking out the gates. All I'm saying is a killer should be able to, like they currently can open the gates, go up to the actual exit and hold down a button and say, yes, let me leave. You do all of that, this is perfect. These 2 points themselves are good. It would just be so much nicer if I could do that, because one thing that really sucks, and I'm talking, this is literally one of the most like soul draining parts of playing this game, is when I have 3 or 4 survivors left when all generators are done and I'm expected to camp as clown with base kit reassurance, base kit BT, possibilities of in-game perks like hope and shit, body blocking, the exit gates either being 99 or open. Like it's literally the Sisyphus meme. Like you basically are probably not getting anything. You're going back down the mountain at the very least because you'll be downing someone else and hooking them, and then they're going to be. It's so exhausting. So I would genuinely, in my matches where I am in that position, I would rather just open the gate, leave, give them their win, right? Give them their win. Literally, in the same situation with the slugging, if the killer being able to do this, it's giving the survivors their win. I think that's okay. I think that's great. That would make this, it would make it come full circle, and it would make it perfect. Next up, gamma adjustments. I'd thought about this more initially. I didn't really think it was going to be like super amazing, but I actually think it's a lot better than I initially thought. I first kind of thought this was only going to be a benefit for people who played on console, people like who were using TV monitors. Maybe they had a window glare, as you'll sometimes hear me talk about on stream. I actually sit kind of near a window, but I play on a high quality like PC monitor, and it doesn't really impact that too much. But for people who use like regular TVs with their with their Xboxes or their PlayStations, this probably is going to help them so much more. I have kind of seen, when I've gone over to my buddy's place when he played DBD, and I'd seen what it was kind of like. Definitely left a lot to be desired when it comes to the lightness, the brightness, and the darkness. So I think this could help, especially if, in a way, I'm wondering if it's going to operate like reshade light, where it's not only just going to make things technically brighter, but I'm wondering if it's going to make certain colors pop out more. That was a big reason why, for those that don't know, why people run Reshade. In addition to altering the general color schemes, you were able to make certain colors stand out. Red is the most common. This means things like certain survivors, like Michaela with her bright red hair, med kits, certain cosmetics with red fabric, right? All of this stands out. I've literally had my friend tell me, and he's shown me with the screen share, that with the proper settings on Dead Dog, you can literally pick out someone hiding in a bush on Dead Dog and like because of their med kit across the map. So I don't necessarily think it'll be that extreme, like with Reshade, but if it operates in some fashion beyond just technically making things brighter and easier to see, but also making it easier to see things like scratch marks, et cetera, maybe even in some ways, I'll go as far as to say some survivors immersing, right? That'll be good. You know, I know that the developers are trying to maintain, as they say, they call it intended artistic direction. And I think that's a flowery way of saying, in a gameplay wise, they want things to have that advantage, you know what I mean, of being darker, because yeah, it has like the mysterioso vibe of it, but objectively it is going to make, if you can influence the brightness and the darkness, your ability to see survivors when they are hiding behind obstacles or hiding within bushes. You know what I mean? So I think this is overall good, though. It is good. I'm curious to see what it is, because yeah, I don't like running Reshade, and by I don't like running, I mean I've never ran or used Reshade at all. I've seen people use it, and it just looks very tedious, having to get all the different settings, had to go through the presets, all of that, and then tap in between each match. Because literally, if you ever watch someone use Reshade, they every single time they'll be like, "Oh, this is Ormond. Oh, okay, Ormond." And they'll be like, "Oh, we're on deck. Oh, okay." It just like you, if there is a definition of optimizing the fun out of the game, and I mean, I know for them it's like the inverse, right? They're optimizing the fun in the game. And again, as someone who gets so annoyed with scratch marks and shit that I use Cigar Box for accessibility, fair criticism, right? Genuinely, that is a fair criticism on their part. It is just tedious to imagine doing that. So just a nice higher baseline, that's good. Next, prevention. Oh boy. So let's see. Instances where a survivor deliberately does everything to go next. We all know this. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't probably need to read fully all of this. Besides, okay, well, let's kind of focus on the key points. So, like, yeah, if the system works properly, this is one of the things I am, like other people, concerned about, is how proper the system is and it's going to work. But if it does, they get a disconnection penalty point and lose an entire grade. That is huge. I think it's a step in the right direction. Let's see. Where I would like to see this go further when it comes to the disconnection penalty for the grade, you need to put a, like, if you've heard the expression carrot on a stick, you need a golden carrot on a stick. Okay? Like, yeah, that hurts. That genuinely hurts. But you know what really makes it burn? If the end reward, this is something I actually heard a different streamer mention. I've mentioned this myself, by the way, like plenty of times over the last couple of years. But I even saw a streamer named Rayoxium mention that there should be like a reskin of a cosmetic at the you have to get Eerie 1. It's going to be every month, and it'd be very easy, right? You literally pick the dozens of cosmetics. It could be one piece. It doesn't have to be a full set. Give it a different color like you see with the rifts, and you only get it for that specific month, which would give it some exclusive factor, you know, if you hit Eerie 1 that month. And if you incorporate that with this disconnection penalty point like system they're coming out with, oh, people are not going to want to send down a full grade. And they could possibly even finick with making it to where you could drop back down grades, right, organically, depending on whether or not you get to, until you get to Eerie 1, to like lock in the Eerie 1 maybe too. There are different ways, I think. I think this is definitely the step in the right direction, especially with what we're about to get to next. But yeah, I really, really like that when it comes to pushing survivors to play the game, right? Playing the game is how we're going to get more accurate stats, but I'll get to that in just a minute. Going on to that next point, they're talking about they want to reward players who do stick out their matches. And by doing that, they say emblem-based multiplier that grants additional blood points that stacks over consecutive trials. So this is a very, very, very big deal. Not only is it basically saying if you stick through the trial and you win, that your blood points, everything you does matter more, but it's going to consistently matter more. Even if you lose, it's still going to matter more. And that means that your escape, possibly, instead of only being worth 5,000, it's worth 15,000. Repairing a generator is not just worth 1,000, it's worth 2,500. Even if you get tunneled out and you have a score of 12 to 15,000, you may at base walk away with 25 to 30,000 before any type of blood point offering multiplier, before any type of roll bonus multiplier, right? So this has the potential impact of really changing up how everybody plays. And when everybody starts to play the game, instead of giving up, you start to get more accurate kill rates. Because I've talked about this on stream, there is no way in absolute hell that Skull Merchant had a deserved 70% kill rate. There is no way. Why did she have a 70% kill rate? Because, hey, thanks for the follow. The only way that she has a 70% kill rate is because survivors would just give up on Hook. They would just say, you know what, we don't want to play. And as long as a survivor in a match doesn't disconnect and supplement their place with the bot, then behavior counts those statistics or those matches into their statistics. So you load in a Skull Merchant, right? You could have literally 0 perks, but they see your Skull Merchant, Survivor 1 runs up and gives up. They let you hook them. They then die on Hook. And then they see that happens, so the other survivors all do the same thing. You get 3 to 4 kills at literally 5 gens. Maybe the other one survivor sticks out, tries to get hatched for whatever reason because they just want to get some BP from the match. Behavior's going to see that, and that match is going into their banks. And they're going to be like, okay, Skull Merchant just like 3 to 4 kills at 5 gens. This killer's crazy. That's how that match will get interpreted. They're going to see they're going to see this consistently to the point where, yes, 70%, because you know what you have to do to get a 70% kill rate? I don't want to get too much off track, but I actually looked at the math using a 60% kill rate. A 60% kill rate means that you are getting just under 2 kills every match. A 70% kill rate means that you are getting on average more than 2 kills every single match. But you are also you're not getting too far off from getting 3 kills. It's actually crazy. So we're talking nurse level high MMR expectation, but a killer that people aren't even able to do much with, right? That is how impactful the stats are. And if survivors are no longer giving up on Hook because they don't want to get hit with a massive DC penalty, if they're playing out their matches and their matches, instead of the survivors getting 3 to 4 killed, by the killer because everyone stuck it out, and maybe all the generators got done and 2 survivors got out the exit gates while survivor number 2 was getting camped on Hook and endgame, right? You suddenly go from both overall objective completion, instead of there being 3 to 4 generators remaining, all generators being done, instead of there being almost every damn survivor killed, only 2 of them, with the second being barely secured. Emphasis on that. Barely secured. Because in a lot of situations, the killer, for them to really get more than 2 kills in the endgame, the survivors have to give them that opportunity. If they literally don't have the second kill in endgame and they go and they put a survivor on the hook, the other 2 can just leave. It's that easy to force a 2 kills outcome for the killer. And that is just something where we're going to see better is what I'm getting at. I know we've gone around many situations. I don't want to hammer in the exact same point way too much repetitively. But yeah, it's going to be great to see better accurate stats so behavior can balance the game better by understanding the true overall level of power of each and every killer. That's the main point. True overall power of every killer. Next up, extreme hiding and body blocking prevention. Let's see. So yeah, everybody, I pretty much, I think I understand how this is going to work. We don't need to fully read this. So yeah, survivors who like to hide and shit at the corner of the map, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. That's going to be amazing. This doesn't really happen too much in my matches, thankfully. I imagine at mid-lower MMRs, it's probably much more frequent because survivors, for whatever reason, just care that much or that petty. So I could see it being more common there and this being more beneficial there. There's really no complaints about that. The losing collision on the third AFK crow, it takes so long to get 3 AFK crows. Like, good. This literally only counters griefers. There's genuinely okay, there's one situation. It's very sweaty, but when exit gates are open and endgame collapse is ticking down, I think it's possible to get 3 AFK crows before endgame ends. So this could potentially enable a survivor to escape when they're getting body blocked in a corner during the endgame collapse, potentially. And that is the only real legitimate downside where this hurts in an objective way of speaking. But when you are doing a play like that, you are so desperate. You are so desperate for a kill. So maybe the benefit of removing that possibility of getting a kill and inflating the statistics is maybe in a healthier way. It would reduce the kill rate, and thus behavior can look at, the killer more properly, as we talked about earlier, to know how to better address and buff either that killer independently or the state of killers as a whole, right? So that could be really, really good. And yeah, other than that, this is mostly just an anti-griefing tool. There's literally, it takes, I don't know the time, I'm sorry, but I do body blocks to reload my bottles and to set up pinks and stuff. Survivors are nowhere close to getting a first crow. So yeah, you should never be getting 3. Map offerings. Yeah, so I did a lot of thinking about this before I even started recording. I'm not really a fan of this at all. No, this is actually not very good. Because this is not good in at least 2 layers. So first things first, it says instead of guaranteeing the appearance, the add-ons are no longer going to stack, and it's going to increase your odds by 20%. So you're going to take your base odds of getting the map, and you're going to add 20% to it. I assume this is additive and not multiplicative, which means that it's not going to be 20% of 6% and only give you 7 to 8% chance. I think it's going to be, if it were assuming here, right, a 6% chance, you're going to get a 26% chance. That's pretty huge, right? Now imagine because even though these offerings do not stack, imagine you go against a team of survivors and 3 of them one of them brings RPD, one of them brings Eerie, one of them brings Badam. You've now got 3 maps with just 3 of the 4. The 4th could bring one too, right? But what if the 4th one wants to bring a Petrified Oak, right? That's kind of why I'm assuming they don't. You're going to have 3 maps with their base chance and an added 20%, all of that added together, which means your chances of getting their map that's going to be favorable for whatever they're seeking is going to be on a likelihood above 70%. So yeah, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get sent specifically to Eerie 100% of the time, but you're going to have a 70-ish, maybe more percent, because again, we don't know what the base chance is for each map, but let's assume minimum 70. I think that's fair. A 70% chance of getting sent to Eerie, RPD, or Badam. And now to make matters worse, the offerings are going to be secrets, which means you're literally not even going to know. You are removing a layer of agency, right? Because a part of agency is understanding. It's knowing what you're looking at. It's looking at the offering screen and saying, okay, I see Eerie, Badham, and RPD. This looks like a match I don't want to play. It's removing that, and it's making you basically not, I wouldn't say coin flip, but just in some senses go against your gut feeling. Because a lot of people, they see that and they're going to say, I shouldn't play this match. Because they're going to think to themselves what the outcome could be, and they either play it out and then they're frustrated with themselves because they could have dodged it, or they're going to be frustrated with the game because the game isn't really giving them that information. They're not able to know 100% the survivors brought these 3 maps to influence this specific outcome, right? So what are killers going to do in response to this? The moment they start seeing secret offerings, they're just going to fucking dodge. It used to be killers would play out certain map offerings. If a survivor brought Gideon, I would sometimes play out Gideon. You know, if they bring Matt Millen and Autohaven, I play those out a lot. I'll definitely play those out. Those, even though I think there's a little bit of a bug with the tile generation, they're pretty like fun chases, good tiles. Sometimes I'll play out Crotus if I don't get the feeling they're doing like some weird boilover stuff. My point though is that there are some map offerings I will play, but there are also some I won't play. If a survivor brings RPD, Iria Crows, and a good oftentimes bad hand, I close my game. I will flat out close my game, reboot DBD, avoid wasting the time of playing that match out because I don't want to play that match out. It is actually going to frustrate me. It's going to make me want to play the game overall even less. So I rather just dodge that match. Going forward, I'm going to have to presume every secret map offering is one of those three. Because if I don't assume that, and I play the match out, and I happen to get one of those maps, and I happen to see that they brought the offerings, and I look to myself and say that I could have avoided this entirely, I'm going to look at myself and the game as being responsible, and I'm going to put myself in control of what I can, right? Because if I can't control that the developers want to make the offering secret, I can control my ability to close the game. And so I'm just going to see every secret offering, close the game. One secret offering, close the game. Because I don't know, I don't know if that 26% chance, if that somehow wins. I don't know if, maybe they bring 2 map offerings, right? That already in of itself gives them probably close to half better odds. You're just not going to want to play matches out where you don't have the information of what survivors are bringing, because the state of the game is, depending on the map you get sent to, the match isn't fun. It's not fun to play killer. And when you are your own role who is only dependent and can be dependent on himself, and you already have everything literally stacked against you, you don't want to play that shit. And the irony of survivors, especially, thankfully they are taking away the ability to go next, but survivors, had that ability for so long. And it's just a shame that I feel like the overall outcome of the map offering situation is not going to change. I just think that you're probably just going to see more survivors bringing map offerings, and they're going to be coordinating different map offerings. And I don't think that for a lot of killers, they're going to want to bring sack wards every game just to counter this and play out their matches because people want BP. I mean, I don't know about you guys, right? But I'm not the only P100, or excuse me, there are not many P100 is what I meant to say. A lot of people who play DBD are either on at best maybe mid prestige, like 40, 50, maybe they're lower. I'd imagine there's a whole bunch y'all that aren't even prestige 10. So blood points kind of matter when you're in that position. You can't just bring a sack ward every game, because that, over the course, the long period of your matches, that really hurts your blood point gains. You're going to want to bring BP offerings, so now you either have to dodge the secret maps, or you're going to have to play out the miserable matches and just not care. But the more you play DBD, the more you're probably going to care, is all I'm going to say. I think that just about counters that. But yeah, I don't really, they say your decision of the match will not be swayed by external factors. The whole last comment on this, everything I talked about disproves that. No. Very much swayed by external factors. But anyways, spawn rules. I think I remember what this is. Survivors are going to spawn very close to each other. 12 meters especially. That's very, very close. I don't know what they're going to do to the Shroud offerings. That could matter a lot. I will say that having survivors spawn clustered together is it should be an overall buff for the majority of killers. Because if you're able to catch a survivor early, even on a killer like Clown, if let's say even you're on a map like Dead Dog, right? And you learn the new spawn logic, the new spawn placements of survivors relative to killer, if you're able to start a chase early, get a quick tag when a survivor's called out, and then because the other survivors spawn so close to each other, you can get another tag and then commit to that. Basically, in a sense, what this is doing is giving you more overall macro pressure. So, like, I want to kind of go a bit beyond Clown, actually, because I was really thinking about this, too. This is a really, really good change. Let's kind of look at the overall killer list. Like, Trapper, probably not so much, because Trapper's a setup killer. Wraith, oh, yeah. Like, if once you learn the spawn logic of survivors, you literally go right up to survivors in your cloak, you uncloak, get a tag, you're going to be so close to the others, they're also not going to be on gens, maybe get another tag. Yeah, you know, it's the same strategy I was talking about earlier, but accentuated because of Wraith's mobility at the start. Like, you literally capitalize even more on that initial spawn placement because of your ability to cross the map and catch them so soon. Especially, again, perks like Lethal Pursuer are probably going to help out a lot with this spawn changing. I would definitely look at Lethal Pursuer. Hillbilly. You literally chainsaw up to the survivors? Oh my gosh, Billy could probably slug like crazy. If you literally, same thing, you know the survivor spawn placements, you chainsaw up, you down a survivor, you just, you go through your animation, you rev up again, you can probably down another survivor. You could probably, like, I could expect slugging Hillbilly to, like, pop off with this change. Nurse. I mean, it's Nurse Gang, Her mobility, I don't think, compared to some of the others like Blight, Blight and Billy, is going to be as, like, immediately high. But yeah, you're able to start your chase and know that all survivors are not going to be on a generator because they're going to be running for their lives from you. That's really, really good. Mikey, I don't know how they changed his stalk. I don't know if his stalk is still technically capped at only one survivor, or if it's actually, I think it was split now that I think about it. But yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to get the advantage, assuming there is one. Again, I'm not 100% certain, of stalking multiple survivors simultaneously. Hag, setup killer, so I really don't know about that. Doctor, you can get your early madness application from your M2. If finding survivor spawns, if they're going to be all within your terror radius, if you catch them at like a choke, catch them on the split, while they're still partially clustered within your terror radius. Bubba, probably at a lighter version, more M1 level. If you can get there soon enough, you can do similar types of slugging as Hillbilly because he's an instant down killer. Huntress, you can probably get a bunch of early hatchet health states for macro pressure. Nightmare, I don't really know so much. Pig, I don't think so much. Clown, if you can get some early tags because you find them at the beginning and you understand the survivor spawn placements, this could be pretty decent. Spirit, probably same thing, maybe even an early down and then some slugging and maybe even more. I don't know, I'd imagine very good. Legion's probably going to be one of the best benefiters from this because he's going to be able to just get all those injuries from the extra speed and that killer instinct. So Legion is going to benefit greatly from this. Plague too. You catch them enough to just get a teeny bit of puke on multiple survivors, you force cleanses off of that. You either force cleanses or you get red puke and you snowball super early in the game. This could be good for that. Ghostface, multiple stalk on multiple survivors. Demogorgon, I don't think so much. Oni, oh my gosh, Oni's going to be, like, I'd imagine so much better. You get all those early injuries and convert that into power with all the blood orbs. Deathslinger, I don't really know so much. Same with Pyramid Head, probably in a way. Blight, holy crap, he's going to be popping off with all that mobility and just getting all the free tags and downs. Twins, probably too. Oh my gosh, you could just get all the injuries and you could probably slug with Victor. Trickster, maybe. I don't know, possibly. Nemesis, I think. I don't know. I don't necessarily think Nemesis will probably benefit as much. Maybe you could actually hit tier 2 and tier 3 infection faster, and that could be good. Cenobite. I think Cenobite might be impacted negatively, believe it or not. Oh yeah, actually, if there's any killer who's impacted negatively, it probably is Cenobite because it's going to affect the initial box logic. Normally, Cenobite players who would run Lethal Pursuer so they could see where every survivor is and use that information for the start of the match to know where the lament configuration is. And they're not actually using Lethal basically to go for the survivors. They're using it to immediately start that chain hunt at the very start of the game. This is going to be impacted because of the spawn logic changing. And it might make it harder to find the box. If survivors are all clustered in one area instead of being split out, that means that you can't use process of elimination since the box spawns away from survivors and the killer to say, okay, well, if all the survivors and I am here, then the box has to be here. Instead, you're going to have me here, survivors there. Where's the box going to be? You know, artist with severed hands is going to be probably disgustingly mean. Oh my gosh, I can imagine my buddy Deshi on his artist is going to be so loving this change with his severed hands. You literally just shoot a survivor. For those that don't know how severed hands works, you shoot a survivor with your crows, and nearby survivors also get the crows. And this means you can essentially injure multiple survivors at once with your birds. Oh, right at the start of the match, especially with lethal. Oh, this could be mean. Onryo, probably a lot of free tags to set up some early slugging. Dredge, same thing to get Nightfall going. Wesker, with his mobility, you get on your chases. Like, we're just going through the whole list, I figure, at this point. Knight, I'm not too certain, but I feel like in a lot of ways he'll be similar to some of the other M1 killers with how he gets his pressure going, like getting the free M1s and just also pressuring probably multiple survivors simultaneously. Since they're going to be all clustered up, he could preoccupy survivors maybe with a guard while he pressures another M1. Skull Merchant, I think she's going to need more help than that. Probably not going to be able to do much even with it. Singularity, oh my gosh, if with the right add-ons, right? Doesn't he have add-ons where they start slipstreamed? Yeah, you could probably pop off with that change. Xenomorph, probably too, with the tunnels when you learn spawn logic since they'll spawn so close. I don't know about Chucky. I feel like really good Chuckies will be able to do a lot with this, maybe. I don't know, though. Same with Unknown. I really don't know, because, yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, you could, maybe. Um, Same with Vecna. If they spawn so close together, they probably won't get items as easily for that early game. And also, you can probably use your powers, right, to get free injury tags and then chase another survivor and then like have that macro pressure like we talked about with Wraith, right? Like you could probably do that. Dracula, like he's got a lot of abilities that hit multiple survivors. His flame pillar hits multiple survivors. He, I think, has good lunging and like execution for that down on the wolf form. You can get to the survivors on their spawn placement with his bat form faster than a lot of other killers. Don't know too much about Houndmaster. Uh, I think with her pathing from her dog, she could, if she understands the survivor spawns, she could get there almost immediately because of how quickly the haste scales. But yeah, that's looking at the whole killer roster. I think there is some fashion beyond like Pinhead, who's also going away, by the way. It's gonna be good to have this this spawn rule change. Now, looking at improved AFK bot detection, I mean, yeah, this is good. Do we really need to say much at all about this? Like, people grind AFK to get blood points and eerie shards. It's like barely anything. It's mostly just eerie shards. I think it gives them account EXP, which is mostly just a flex in a way, besides the eerie shards from that. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why anyone would criticize that. That's good. That they're doing that. Get rid of AFK bots. Bulk blood point spending. This can be good. I think for most people, this is going to be good. Now, most people are leveling up their characters, right? Like, multiple characters are still getting their prestiges. They don't really, there's nothing they're specifically after in their blood webs. This is going to allow people to grind a bunch, get their blood points spent without thinking about it, not proactively spending it after every match, and then just go back to the game. Because a lot of people do find it tedious going through like every blood web over and over and over and over again to go through 1 million blood points, and that is a very, very fair criticism. But depending on its execution, there's a very high likelihood that I don't use this new system. And the reason for that is I am very particular with my blood point spending. I go for specific add-ons and specific offerings. So I'm not just going to throw my blood points away to get rid of it faster at the cost of not even getting like add-ons and offerings that I want to begin with, right? Like I'm not just spending my blood points to spend it. I'm spending it to acquire things that I specifically want for my clown matches. So given that I'm prestige 100 and my blood webs are that much better by comparison to other people who are leveling their characters and thus would have all the more incentive to spend their blood points in greater bulk, this is a great change for them, not so much for me. Or people like me, right, with this mindset. New questing system. this is good. I think this is basically. I think they're going to be like coming up with new challenges. Maybe like I'd like to see some like killer related challenges or like survivor related challenges that are like independent to the killer, like do X, Y, and Z multiple times. You know, like Marvel Rivals has a system to level up the proficiency of a character. You need to use their abilities in a certain way or like achieve like a certain goal. So like play the killer a certain amount of time, use ability to stun somebody a certain number of times, etc., etc. You could do something like with Clown, where it's like hit an intoxicated survivor while you're invigorated X number of times. Take a pallet while invigorated X number of times, things like that. Well, I mean, while that's last example is more arbitrary and doesn't really, tie into the power, right? If you were to, it could be something like hit a survivor while you're phased as spirit or coming out of phase X number of times. There are so many ways that they could kind of incorporate a expanded quest system that is more engaging for people that play the game, especially people that focus on a very small number of killers. It makes them feel like they're progressing both their understanding and their proficiency, right, of those characters. So this is really good. I'd like to see that done even better. Looking forward to that. Um, there's so many ways, like like that they can make it better, and I'm sure hopefully we'll have to see what they come up with. Perk loadouts and preview. Um, this is mostly survivor changes from the looks of it. I think I read some comments about this. I heard this is like mostly just like a cosmetic change, and it's not like a quality of life change. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because it's only going to be for you. It's not going to be for your teammates. I feel like if teammates could see their other teammates' builds, while it would be good for those people to not want to queue with, say, the left behind um key gamer, right, with Soul Survivor, while that is a genuine objective like criticism, like you can respect them for that. The problem is that you now have a backfill situation because when those people see their teammates have those perks, they leave the lobby. Now the game MMR system is like, we need to get someone quick as possible, so it pulls people outside of the MMR bracket range of that specific lobby, so the game gets going. And that's where matches can get really crazy and out of balance, right? Or out of the, balance of the collective skill level of the player base, in that match, right? To be very specific. So that would be a problem. It's not like, well, while it would be great, like I said, to just never have those teammates on your team as survivor, what's not great is loading into a game and getting completely obliterated by the killer, or going against a killer who is completely like you are out of their league in terms of skill to where they can't even keep up and they get no hooks, right? Both aren't exactly engaging, wouldn't you agree? Especially the killer, I'm sure, would definitely agree. In that latter scenario, being on that receiving end, yeah, they probably don't want to be in that match, right? So, especially if the people dodging meant the killer dodged, so it pulls another killer outside the bracket, right? There are just so many ways where if survivors could see the perks of their teammates, it could fall apart. But I think that does about wrap up everything when it comes to phase one. I'm interested to see what they have to say about phase two. I want to, as we close this out, my final thoughts. I want to encourage people to try to be a bit more trustworthy, maybe, of the devs. I know they do some very questionable decision making recently, right? Especially like I talk all the time about the base kit BT, the base kit reassurance. What I'm getting at is the developers, I do think, understand the game better than people think. And they may come out with decisions that we don't agree with, right? For example, the Skull Merchant changes were terrible. And I think one of the reasons they did that was just so people didn't play the killer, which is a very, like, morally decision making wise, I think that is very questionable. Just saying we're going to just bastardize a killer so people don't play it, so the survivors, don't quit the game, and overall matchmaking quality improves, right? I guarantee everything I just summarized right there is a good reason probably behind why Skull Merchant received those changes. And yeah, it's terrible, but what I'm getting at, the developers didn't do those changes because they don't understand Skull Merchant, they don't understand the game. They understand the game, when it comes to the overall state. And while it sucks, it's just one of those things where it's like they're doing it for the overall health of the game because it's the player base, you know? A better way, again, I talked about this as another example. You expect the developers to give you a sedan because a sedan is the proper balancing, and instead you get hit with a pickup truck. And you're thinking to yourself, this game's not balanced with pickup truck. The developers are like, yes, but here's the problem. The game's not getting anywhere in a sedan. The game's only getting anywhere if it's a pickup truck. Does that make sense? Like, I guarantee you there are developers that when you look at some of the design ideas that people come up with the game that aren't implemented, and they're like, yeah, we can't do this for the game. Guarantee you they're thinking to themselves, yeah, this is great. The game needs this if you look at it on a fundamental objective level when it comes to X, Y, and Z, performance, skill, balance, expression, yada, yada. But the game's not ready for it. Because some of the survivors that play DBD, like this is just an arbitrary example, you give them a 30-second corrupted base kit, the kill rates would go up by 10 to 15%. They start dying like flies, right? Like, even though it doesn't make any sense because you can guarantee there's a bunch of skilled survivors that wouldn't even, it wouldn't be even a breeze to them 30 seconds base kit corrupt. There are a lot of survivors where that is game-changing momentum depending on the killer they go against. So, yeah, I guarantee there are devs who are like, yeah, this would be great for the game. We can't do it. Sedan versus pickup truck. So I just think that about wraps everything up. I'm going to be very positive and hopeful with these changes. I'm curious to see what they come out with phase 2. We'll figure that out, I guess, in 4 months in July. If you are interested in learning how to play Clown better, I have a very detailed Clown guide if you don't know. I'm going to be updating it probably sometime soon. I have highlights that I post on my channel as well, just about every day, 5 days a week. I also stream live on Twitch during the weekdays, so if you're interested in watching me play Clown live, interact with me personally, ask me questions about the state of the game, about Clown, yada, 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 I'll have a link to my stream in the description as well. But other than that, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all next time. Later, gang!